Hey everyone, welcome to my tutorial on how to use the discussions feature of Canvas. As I'm sure you are well aware, due to the COVID pandemic that's going on right now, RTS is moving all of its classes online, and so those of us who are TAs and professors are having to figure out how to use the discussions, as that is now how we students are interacting with the professors. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Matt Pinkard. I've been a teaching assistant for Dr. Ligon Duncan for almost 4 years, pretty much my entire time at seminary, other than summer languages, my first summer here. And Dr. Duncan's Covenant Theology class seems to be the only on-site class to have made any significant use of the discussions feature, and so he asked me if I could make a video just kind of explaining how they work. This video is going to be from the perspective of a teaching assistant, which is more or less the same as what a professor will see when setting up a class, with only a few permissions that we don't have. If a student happens to be watching this video, most of this isn't really going to apply to you. So if you need a separate video, let me know and I can make one. I've taken plenty of classes that have required use of these because I've taken a few classes online as well. But for the most part, that's fairly straightforward. So I'm going to be creating this as a guide for mostly how to use the features that are relevant during our move to online courses for the rest of spring of 2020. So that being said, this of course is my dashboard, but the first thing that I want to show you is actually the Canvas Guides page. You can find this if you go to community.canvas.com. LMS. You can see it's already popped up there because I've been to it a few times today. Community.canvaslms.com. This has a lot of Canvas resources, but the one we're interested in here is guides. Go to Canvas LMS, and then down here go to Instructor Guide. And these are guides for every feature that Canvas offers from the perspective of an instructor, which includes TAs. In this case. So if we just go to discussions, you see here all kinds of information. A lot of these are very brief guides about very specific features. Nevertheless, this has more information than I'm planning to include in this video, and also if you would rather read quick reference guides instead of listening to this whole video, then this would be where you want to go. So community.canvaslms.com to find that. And that's not just for discussions, anything Canvas related. As for this guide, I know some people like to just see everything in action. So starting out on my dashboard page, I'm going to be showing everything from the perspective of Covenant Theology, since that's the course that's been using these for a while and the course that I have TA access to right now. If you didn't know, you can nickname your courses. Dr. Duncan's teaching 2 Covenant Theology courses right now, and especially when I'm sending messages to students, it's helpful to have this called Doctor of Ministry Covenant Theology and Jackson Covenant Theology, just to keep them distinguished. You just click these 3 dots up here and it will let you nickname it really whatever you want. But more importantly, you can access the discussions either just by clicking this icon here, and this icon will also show you if there are discussions you haven't looked at or replies to discussions you haven't looked at. So you can see down here with my hermeneutics class. So you can click on that, it'll take you straight there, or as you probably know, if you're on your home page, you can go to the discussions tab on the left. And there we are. So these are the discussions that were created by the Canvas administrators of RTS. These are all the discussions we've had the whole time in Covenant Theology. We have a lot of them, as you can see. These are all optional things that we've been using to help students prepare for quizzes. You'll notice there's this green icon next to the topical discussion questions and the student-to-student discussion. That's because these are the graded discussions. And then there's no similar thing here, no similar icon for these or for the student-to-professor discussion. So that's that distinction. You'll also notice these ones are pinned. That shouldn't matter unless you have, like we do, lots of discussions. Normally I would have pinned whatever ones are applicable to the quiz for a given week, but now that we have these graded ones, I'm just going to keep these pinned. If you decide to make more discussions and want to pin or unpin certain ones, you just do that with these 3 dots on the right hand side here. You can also move them by clicking and dragging these dots, or move to. but that's one of the less important features. Now, you'll probably just have to edit these in order to get what you want, but I'm going to show you from the perspective of creating a new one. Just a little bit easier to explain everything. So just hit plus discussion. You set your title. Your titles are already set for you, and I imagine we'll probably just want to leave all those titles in place, but I'll just change this one to example for now. This would be where you'd put the topic for discussion, as well as any instructions for maybe how you want students to answer. And ordinarily, you're just generally going to put some kind of text here. So as a Covenant Theology TA, I might write something like, discuss the connection between the covenant of works and the covenant of grace. So that would be the discussion topic, and then I might give instructions for how to answer. Answer with a paragraph of no fewer than 6 sentences. And if you've ever taken Dr. Duncan's classes, you know that he will want you to include references to scripture, historical creeds or confessions, and systematic theology and theologians. So this, if you just want to do something real basic, this is more or less all you have to do. And then, of course, you have to set up the rest, but I'll show you that in a minute. As was discussed in the Canvas training the other day, there are other things that you can add here if you prefer. You can actually record a video or audio file and embed it straight into this. So if you wanted to give your instructions that way, you could do that. You can include a Vimeo or YouTube video. So if there's something that you already know is out there that you want to include that's either on Vimeo or YouTube, you can use that. You can embed other media if you want, but then you have to know, how to use the embed codes and all that. Hyperlinks, even math equations if you happen to need that for some reason. Can't imagine why you would, but hey, it's there. And of course you've got all your formatting options for the text. These are the other things that you can include, links to other parts of Canvas. This is probably what you would be most likely to do if you want your discussion to be based off of a particular lecture. Just name the page for that lecture, something clear enough that you can find it, and then just click here on the right. It'll add the lecture page. Or we've got other resources for Canvas as well, so I'll just delete this. For example, we have a debate between Donald McLeod and one of the Torrance brothers. There we go. So if I just go ahead and click that, it'll put it right in there for me. Control-Z to get rid of it. So that any page you already have up, or you can create a new page, and then same, of course, for the rest of these different kinds of things that you can include. Pretty self-explanatory. If you remember the files, there are 2 different ways to attach files here, or 3 I should say. Media can be attached through these options. It can be attached if you've already uploaded it into the files for your course, with over here, or you can actually upload it to that file section with this link here. Also, you can attach things, especially documents and other kinds of instructional things you might want to include. And you just click that and it'll open, and that's how you would want to upload it from your computer, unless it's a particularly large file, which again then you'd need to upload it to the files first, or use this link and then attach it from here. So I could include the syllabus here, for example, which for some reason if I just attach something and deleted it, then it wants to put the next thing in its place. But so that's how you would set up your question and your instructions. Pretty straightforward. You're probably just going to want to leave this alone, let it post to all sections, unless you happen to create a new discussion that you only want a certain section of the class to see. And that's for if you're teaching multiple sections of the same class. Now here, this again, that's where you add other files if you need to for some reason. So these options, the ones that you're going to find already checked, if you go into the topical discussions or the student-to-student discussion, is allow threaded replies. That just keeps things neater. Users must post before seeing replies. this might not be as, this probably won't be true for the student-to-student forum, but for the others, this will usually be checked by default, and you want to leave it that way so that students can't just, copy each other. Podcast feed we don't worry about. You will want to make this a graded discussion, which will get rid of the add to student to do option. So we need these to be graded so that it's clear they're required. And you can allow liking whether or not you want. That's not checked by default. I like to have it on, so I'm just going to leave it. This could also be a way, obviously, of saying, if you make it so that only graders can like, you can make TAs and professors able to like posts to show students liked your post, don't want to take the time to actually type that out. I've done that more than once. Points possible will be set to 1 or 2 by default. The student-to-student is set to 2. The topical discussions are set to 1. And that corresponds to the minimum number of student inputs for those forums. So they need to have 2 student-to-student posts, and they need to have 1 post on each of the topical discussions. Obviously, if you want to for your class, or if you're a TA, if your professor wants to, they can require more responses than that. Most of the online classes for the topical discussions will require 2. So the student will post once, the professor will reply and ask for clarification or further information on some point, whether either clarification on something they mentioned or further information on something they didn't. And then the student will have to reply with that, and that will fulfill the requirements there. So then for them it'll be 2. Now if you want to make these discussions part of the grade, then you'll have to figure out some other way to communicate to the students. You just tell them you need to reply once or twice, include that in your instructions up here. Or 7 times if you feel like putting all that on the students. But of course you could set this to 10 points and then give 10 points for high quality replies, 7, 8, 9 points depending on the quality of the reply, and that's probably what you want to do if you want to make this actually part of the grade. But since we're only going to require 1 response, and for us it's just going to be our way of marking whether or not they did it, we're going to leave it at 1, and we'll display the grade as points, but if you're only requiring 1 participation, you could also make it complete or incomplete. You'll want to assign it to the right assignment group so that it applies the grade or non-grade properly. So in our case, topical discussions, which are set to be 0% of the grade at this time. Peer reviews, you might need that for a counseling class, I suppose, but generally speaking, this is not something that we would mess with. So this section here, this assigned, this is if you've ever created any assignments in Canvas, this is exactly the same. Most of this, actually, from what you see on your screen right now, is the same. We'll make this one, so for Covenant Theology, what we've decided is to make them due throughout the rest of the semester rather than lumping them all at the end. I've taken online classes and everything's due just at the end of the semester, or not at the end of the semester, at the end of the class, which is just, I believe, 90 days from whenever you begin the class. And there are some people who are particularly self-disciplined and can handle that really well, but that's not going to be true of all students, of course, as if you've been a TA or professor for any length of time, you know very well. So we've just decided that it'll probably be better for our students to space these out. So we'll have our first one due, for example, Monday if we can get it all filled out and posted soon, or we'll push it back a few days if we need to. So we would say my Canvas is set to Eastern Time, that's the default, but I want it to be due at midnight Monday Central Time, so I just need to push it forward an hour, so I'll do it Tuesday morning at 12:59 a.m. Available from is if you only want it to open on a certain date instead of just being open indefinitely until, again, that's if you want it to close after a certain date. Right now I have all of ours set to close at the same time that they're due. But also I have other discussions, for example, the ones related to the quizzes. I just leave those open, and that's probably what I'll do. I'll go back and change the topical discussions, because that way if students are really interested, they can just keep going. And discussing things for the rest of the semester and beyond the end of the semester if they want to use that forum to do so. So that's everything for setting it up. The last thing to do is to hit save and publish. You'll notice it says not published up here, which means only the professor and TAs can see it. I am not going to publish this now because I don't want students. Actually, I take that back. Let me go ahead and get this text back up here. Take me a bit. There we go. Because I'm going to go into a student view and just respond to this. So I'll go ahead and publish it, and I will just hope that students don't do this in the next 5 minutes. But it shouldn't matter that much. All right, so this, now I've created this discussion. That's everything you need up to this point. I want to show you what students see when they go in here. So let me go into student view. If you didn't know, you can go to the home page of the class. You can also do this from the settings menu over here on the right, or if you've got the browser window shrunk down pretty small. Yeah, if you shrink it small enough, it'll put it at the bottom. Just go into student view. Right, and got this, purplish, pinkish ring around student view. So I'm seeing what a student would see. I'll go to the discussions. I can also find this in the modules section. Well, so the particular one that we just set up is not currently in the modules, but all the ones that you have created for you that you just need to edit and fill in from the RTS administrators, those will all be in a separate module that I have deleted because I have interspersed them throughout. So we've got them set, for example, to topical discussion 3 is due on April 6th. So it's in that module. So that's one way to access it, but there's nothing there right now. If you make the discussions tab not hidden, which you would have to do through your settings, then students will be able to see it and access it that way. So I'll go to this example one that I just put. It's not pinned, and since I'm in student view, I can't pin it right now. But if I was in the TA view, I could pin it and put it back up at the top. All right, so now let's enter my reply. And, I'm not actually going to type all 6 sentences. I'm just going to put in one example phrase. That'll be my reply. A student, just like a professor, has all the same options for how they want to input content and links to other pages. But nobody ever uses that. They can also attach documents. Post reply. All right, and replying will subscribe the student, which you should tell them that they probably want to leave that checked so that they get notifications when the professor replies to them. Professors and TAs are not subscribed by default, but as soon as they reply, I think that will also turn green. You can also just click it to subscribe. But that's what a student will see. I will now leave student view. All right. And now, back in TA view, I can see, oh, the test student has replied. And if I was a professor or a TA and I want to reply, great answer. Can you give me more information on... Or, can you clarify what you meant by post reply? So this part of it, of course, is all just very straightforward, but I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So, here you go. This is TA. Now, if I went back into student view, as the test student, I would see this. I could hit reply, and then, I can, as a TA, I can like it and say, yeah, good answer. So I don't want this to stay up here, so I'm just going to go ahead and, well, I'm not going to delete it yet, because first I'm going to go into SpeedGrader. So when you grade the discussion, however you want to set up the grades, whether you want it out of 10 or whether you would just want it out of 1 to mark that the student had the one interaction that he was required to have. And it was, I'm going to pretend that was a substantive interaction, so I want to give him the point for that. So just to mark it, it's showing me his post. All I have to do is put the 1 here, click anywhere else on the page. Now that student has a grade of 1 out of 1, or 100%. And you see this is the list of all our students. If they had actually posted anything in here, then I could grade their posts as well. And you can hide grades up here so that you can do them all. This is taking me to the grade book, and I don't want anybody to see that, so we're going to close that. There we go. So that's pretty straightforward. The other way that you can grade them if you want to, if you know that, who has and hasn't participated, or if you have it pulled up in a separate window or something, you can go to the gradebook. Again, I'm not going to click that because that'll take me there and then you'll see all the students' grades. But if you were to go to the gradebook, you can just manually edit all the grades in there if you weren't aware of that. So you can also just grade them that way. And I want to get rid of this one, so we'll just click those buttons, delete. This doesn't need to stay there. There we go. So that should be everything you need to know as a student or TA about the discussions feature of Canvas. If you have any other questions, you can find it in those guides. You can email Evan Frazier, of course, but he's going to be very overwhelmed. Or you can let me know, and I can either update this video or, point you in the right direction of how to do something. But otherwise, I hope that this has been helpful for somebody. And maybe I'll even do some other guides in the future. I've had to do a lot of things in Canvas as Dr. Duncan's TA. So, happy canvassing.